What is up, homies? My name is Felix, and I'm here back again with another video for you all today. And this video should hopefully be pretty helpful for, at least a few of you out there. Basically, I'm just going to be showing you guys how to take your electric guitar and make it sound like a bass guitar. And this is actually something that I've been doing pretty often recently, and it works pretty well. This method gives you a pretty passable bass sound, but obviously it's not going to be exactly perfect and sound exactly like a bass guitar, because the only way that you're really going to get that is if you just have a bass guitar. But this is going to work pretty well if you just need a pretty simple bass guitar riff or something like that. Also, just a quick note, the things that you're going to need for this video are obviously an electric guitar. You're also going to need an audio interface that you can plug into your computer, and then obviously you're going to need a cable so that you can plug your guitar into your audio interface, and then you're also going to need a computer, and then you're going to need a couple different plugins, but nothing that's too crazy. So yeah, make sure you guys check out my Instagram and my SoundCloud down in the description below, along with playlists of songs I produced, my Beatstorm, my Discord, all that stuff. Go check it out if you guys want to. And now we can get into this video. Alright, so here we are in FL Studio now, and there's one more thing that I figured I should mention, and it's that most of the magic here when we turn that electric guitar into a bass guitar sound is going to be done after we record it. There is a couple things that we're going to do beforehand before we record it, but however, this isn't really the best technique for like live recording as a bass guitar. And also, I'm sure there's a million other different ways of doing this, but this is just my little way of doing it. Anyways, what we have to do is go into the mixer, and then we're going to go to insert 1 or insert 2, doesn't really matter. And then you want to make sure that your audio interface is plugged into your computer and your guitar is plugged into your audio interface. And then you're going to select whichever insert or line in or whatever that your guitar is plugged into. Mine is insert 2. So now once we select that and I play the guitar, you'll hear it through the computer. So now that we have our guitar plugged in and ready to go and everything, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna bring up an Edison, and usually for this technique I'll have something recorded beforehand, so I'll have some sort of keys or some sort of guitar sample that I've already recorded. And that's pretty important because you have to know the root notes or bass notes of whatever chords are in your beat so that you can play those notes with your bass line. So I'm gonna show you what I mean by that. Basically, we have our guitar here, and with the guitar, I'm just gonna record a little something. I'm not gonna record anything too crazy, just a couple chords. So I'm gonna go with this. So now that we have a little something to model our bass line after, we can go ahead and start doing the actual bass line section. So like I said earlier, it's important for you to know the root notes or bass notes of the chords that are playing. So as you guys saw, what I just played was something like this. And pretty obviously, if you want to find your bass note or your root note, it's going to be the lowest note that's playing. So with those chords, my finger was always barring this top string right here on these notes. So that's going to be my bass notes. And that's another thing that I should add, is that when you're doing your bass line, you really only want to do it on these top 2 strings here. That's like the lowest that you should go. Because if you're doing it on some strings that are down here, it's really not going to sound like a bass line when we adjust it and everything. So yeah, maybe if your chord progression has like a D chord or something in it like this, find the D that's right here and play that instead. Or the D on the low E string, whichever you prefer, but either way, this is going to sound best on that low E string and on the A string. So anyways, back to our little chord progression. The notes that we're going to be playing for the bass line are just those root notes of the chord. So just like that. And now what you can do is you can just play it and listen to it, and then come up with your own bass line as it plays. Just kind of play along and figure out what notes you want your bass to be playing. And then once you have that figured out, there's a couple more important things that we need to do before we actually record this and turn it into a bass guitar sound. So this is going to be different for every different guitar, but the way that my pickup configuration is laid out is I have a single coil, and then a humbucking pickup right here. And for bass lines and stuff, I'm always going to have it set to the bridge pickup, the humbucker pickup right here, because it basically just gives you a lot thicker and chunkier tone, and that's kind of what you want to go for in a bass line. However, if you have like a Stratocaster, or if you have any other guitar that only has single coils, just try to adjust your knobs and stuff so that you don't really have a super bright tone. You want more of like a deeper and punchier tone, I guess. And then once you have that, you can adjust the volume and tone knobs as much as you like. Make sure that your volume is not too loud when it's coming into the computer, because otherwise it's going to sound really distorted. Just remember that you can always add more volume later, but if you record it too loud in the beginning, it might sound distorted and mess up your, recording and stuff. And now the last thing you should really keep in mind guitar-wise is that when you're playing this bass line, whether you're playing with a pick or you want to to, you know, do it with your fingers or whatever. One thing that I found helps a lot for me when I'm making bass lines with my guitar is playing right over the pickup. Sometimes when I'm playing, I tend to bring my hand up a little bit over here, and that's not really the best for this because you want to really get like every little nuance of that pick hitting the string or like your fingers hitting the string, whatever, you know. Honestly, it probably doesn't make that big of a difference at all, but I have found for me at least that it helps me get a little bit more of that bass sound that I'm going for. So just try that out and see if it works for you. All right, so now at this point, we're almost to the recording section, but there is one thing that I like to do before I record, and that is to put guitar rig on whatever channel I'm recording through, and then go to bass amps, and then go to DI bass or clean bass, whatever you prefer. Obviously, you can use whichever other bass preset that you want, but I've just found that the top two work pretty good for this. Also, you can just use the guitar rig demo for this. If you really don't want to use guitar rig, you can just put a compressor and some sort of amp sim on there, and it'll probably sound fine too. So basically now we have everything set up, and we're just gonna record our little bass line. So I'm just gonna hit record in Edison, and then I'm just gonna play the guitar we recorded earlier so that we can play our bass line over top of it. Alright, so now that we've recorded our bass line, we just have to go in here and select the actual part of the sample that we want. And then once we have it selected, we just click this little thing right here and drag it in. And now we'll have these two on top of each other. So you might be hearing this and thinking, well, it doesn't really exactly sound like a bass line. It sounds nice together, but it doesn't sound like a bass line. What we essentially have to do is a super complicated process. We just pitch this down by 1200 cents, and that'll sound like this. And it literally sounds just like a bass. One thing that I do like to do, however, is sometimes pitch the guitar up so that we can also pitch the bass line up, because sometimes it might sound a little bit too low depending on what chords you're playing or whatever. So let me just pitch this up by 2. So since we brought the guitar up by 200 cents, we're gonna bring this up by 200 cents. So it'll be at negative 1,000. And now this will all sound like this together. So basically at this point in the video, you pretty much got what you came for, but there is one more thing that I'm gonna show you that's gonna help it sound a lot more complete and fit a lot better with your beat, and that's how I usually mix these type of bass lines. So we're gonna assign both of these to a mixer by hitting Control L. So this example right here is a little bit different from what I would normally do because I'd usually have guitar rig on the guitar as well, but right now I just recorded it dry because that was a lot easier. But I'm gonna show you guys primarily what I would do to the bass sound. So the first thing that I usually do is put this TR5 Black 76 compressor, and this plugin was free at one time, but I don't think it's free anymore. You can basically just use any compressor to get the same effect, but however, it probably would be good to pair a compressor and some sort of saturation plugin, because that's what I like and what most people like about this Black 76 compressor is that it gives it kind of like a warm vintage tone. So usually I just leave this on the default setting, and also what I'll usually do is just put a simple compressor before this, and some people might be like, oh no, that's not what you should do, but this is just what I do. So I'll add Fruity Compressor, and then we'll just bring the threshold to around like negative 25, and then the ratio up to like 1.5 or maybe even 2, and then just turn the gain up a little bit. So now we have this kind of sound going on. So the only other really necessary thing to do is EQ it. So with my EQ, I like to drag this down until you get that kind of shape, and then drag this one all the way down. And then you're just gonna cut out the super like sub bass frequencies that you can't even really hear. And then you're also probably gonna wanna boost like somewhere around here. Just a little super tiny boost there. And then also what I like to do is drag this out like that, and then just bring this whole front end down. And that just kind of rolls off some of the high end and makes it more bassy. So now at this point, you're pretty much done. The only other thing that I sometimes do is add some reverb. And when I add some reverb, I'll maybe add like the small studio preset and then just adjust the parameters to your liking or whatever. But yeah, for the most part, that's pretty much all I'll do, except for maybe you can add a stereo enhancer if you want to make it really wide in your headphones, or you can just adjust this thing if you want to. But yeah, that's pretty much gonna do it for this tutorial. This pretty simple, pretty short and sweet little trick, but this is something that I think sounds really good. It's a super useful tool for, you know, hopefully some people out there who don't have a bass guitar or can't afford a bass guitar, whatever the case may be. Hopefully you can use this to your advantage. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below, and I'll be sure to help you out if I can, if I may. Make sure you guys check out my Instagram and my SoundCloud down in the description below, along with the playlist of songs I've produced, my beat store, my Discord, all that stuff. Go check that stuff out if you guys feel a little curious, a little adventurous or something like that. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.
No, we don't share mothers, but yeah, I still love them, like we share blood. No, I gotta keep going, I can't give up. Lately I've been feeling lost, I've been feeling stuck, but maybe that's because niggas that I